Perfect. Oh, don't go too far. The next items on the agenda are 81 through 91.
90. Oh, 91, yeah, yeah.
80, yes, 81 through 91. ATCNA 2019 00005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and ATFPW 2019 00005. Judge, I'd like to take testimony on all the cases to
At one time, yeah, sure.
in the
But let's see how we can address these.
they're just individual birds and they were cited individually, but the testimony will be in regards to all of them is what we're trying to do.
Okay. Make your appearance for the record.
Good morning, Your Honor, City Attorney and officers. I'm Dr. Emmanuel Suarez Barcelo. I reside at 12885 Maple Road for the last 24 years in Keystone Point. I have my medical office at 12550 Biscayne Boulevard, Suite 226, serving the city of North Miami's residents.
So,
Yes,
you got a ticket.
I got multiple tickets.
For housing fowls on the property.
The correct definition should have been for detaining fowl that invaded my home. They were in my home 2 days before.
All the birds were inside
Th-
the
there-
home?
Let me explain so you have a little background, and I think the officer at hand, and probably most people in the city, are aware that North Miami, actually from my office and through Keystone Point, for the last year and a half, have had an influx of chickens, ducks, and peafowl. On Sunday, prior to the 19th, Sunday the 17th of February, I came home from a lecture trip that I had done. I got home early. I opened my French doors, the back of my house, and I believe the officer took some pictures. So the back of my house is all French doors. Our dining room opens to the pool. French doors were open. I set brunch for my family. They were not up yet because I came home. I wanted to surprise them. I went to take a shower. When I came back, the visiting peafowl and other birds that have been coming around daily are so comfortable that there was a great group of them, like little minions, in my dining room, my living room, my kitchen. When I came out, some of them did scat back out and left, and others were taken residence. Very comfortable, very tame. It's been a problem in the community. I really don't mind the birds. I do mind them inside my house. Part of this statement that I was cited for, it states cruelty. It also states trapping this. I never trapped them. I never went out to trap them. I never went even in my yard to catch them. They were physically inside my house. Now the intent
How
behind
did they get in the cages?
Okay, the cage at hand, the structure that they were in is an old state of Florida encephalitis project structure that was placed there. My home had serviced the city as a volunteer with the state of Florida when we were having the encephalitis issues. Since then, the structure has been used to store gardening tools. It's what's in there right now. It's what was put in there before and after. The intent at that point with those birds was neither to harm them, because there was no intent to harm. There was no harm done onto them. They were fed and watered. I do have a 100-acre plus farm in North Carolina, and when these birds came in and they've been a problem to my neighbors, I said, well, I'm leaving on Wednesday to North Carolina anyways, because we're in the process of moving a lot of the things in our house out, because we're going to plan to build. So I was already going, and I said, you know, I'll pick up some dog kennels and take the birds up with me. In further explanation, when this complaint was done and the officer came, he was not the initial person of contact. It was the state of Florida Wildlife and Game, who called under the assumption that the birds were being detained were endangered or domestic and needed a permit to maintain. That was an officer, Landa, Florida. He subsequently called me that afternoon and said the city and the county are withdrawing because these birds are feral, they're not native, and if you remove them wherever you put them, what they cannot do is go onto the public domain or somebody else's private property. Somewhat in contrast with what the citation from 410 is. Now, on further explanation, I did do my homework for the city code because my intent was genuine and it was not negative, so being accused of cruelty is kind of bad because, as I said, I'm a physician and my life is dedicated to the betterment of life in general. So that kind of hurt. But further, the city defines cruelty, if you would indulge me for a second because I'm not an attorney. So
I always like when people want to do attorney work and then say indulge me because I'm not an attorney.
yeah, well, I'm not really doing attorney work. I'm here to represent myself. So, but
So I'll indulge you.
So as you indulge me, I'll give you an anecdote. The young lady this morning, because I came in dressed with a tie, assumed that I was representing somebody. So we got a good laugh out of that earlier today. But the cruelty statement in the city ordinance says cruelty as an unnecessary or unjustifiable pain or suffering of animals caused, permitted, or allowed to continue, where there is reasonable remedy or relief. Okay, number one, these birds were not hurt. So there was no cruelty in any, and when the officer stated he had a concern for the 19th, my response after I spoke to Officer Fuentes was, if you feel that they are in any jeopardy, you may remove them from the property right now. His response was, I will call you, do not release them, do not remove them, and he left them in the property. He did come back the next day. I have further, I don't have pictures to state this, but it is on my Ring video on my computer that I blew it up. I have Officer Fuentes talking to me in my front door the very next day, which is probably 12 hours from the time, stating, oh, I came back and the birds are fed and watered. So in terms of remedies, out of his own mouth, if that was a concern, and I did water the birds every morning. I leave to my office and to the hospital usually around 6:30, and I water the birds and feed them. I have parakeets and other things, so I watered those birds for those couple of days at the same time, and then in the evening when I come back. So that's to the statement that there's cruelty or something ongoing, even by the definition of what cruelty is in the city ordinance, it's not defined. Now, there is another statement in the citation for 410 that talks about unsanitary. If you look at the ordinances,
How long are we talking about? How long were these birds kept?
from Sunday afternoon till Wednesday when the officer came to pick them up, and he could have taken them on Tuesday if he liked, because I put up no resistance or no concern.
So on Wednesday, the birds were taken by code enforcement.
What date is Sunday afternoon? What are we referring
The
to?
17th, the officer came on the 19th, the birds were removed on the 20th.
I'll let him finish, Judge, and then I'll present my case. Are you done, or do you still have something else?
I think that's pretty much the.
I mean, I have more details to this, but go ahead, because, I mean, I will have time to answer if I feel something is unfair or unjust.
Sure.
So by all means, because I'm here for the city. You know, I live here, my kids are raised here. I'm not here to create some adversarial.
Judge, may I proceed with my case?
Yes,
Or
Counsel.
start?
Proceed.
The state would like to call Michael Fuentes. Sir, can you please state your name for the record?
Good morning, Officer Michael Fuentes, City of North Miami Animal Control.
Can you please tell us about your background and experience with the city of North Miami?
I work for the city for 26 years. Last 7 years as an animal control officer.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do as an animal control officer?
I have different routes each morning, and I make sure that the animals are up to date with current rabies vaccinations, license tags. I do animal cruelty investigations, I pick up the dead animals, make sure that the streets are safe and stuff like that.
Thank you. Now, are you familiar with the property address 12885 Maple Road?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. On February
Counsel,
12th,
before you-
2019. Yes.
Before you
Judge.
go any further, is there any training that's given in terms of your job as relates to animal control?
Yes, I was certified, and every 2 years I have to get recertified and go through some proper training and stuff like that.
And what type of things does the certification encompass?
It encompasses, cruelty to animals, the handling of animals and different cases and scenarios and stuff like that.
All right, thank you, counsel.
But
Yes.
I also,
Go ahead.
a few years back, I had incident with this.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah, okay.
On February 12th, 2019, were you around that same property address, 12885 Maple Road?
That's correct.
May I approach the property owner, Your Honor?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yeah, they've been there for
Okay.
a couple of years.
May I proceed?
Yes. And counsel, you're free to go about the chamber.
Thank you, Judge. Now, do you recognize those photos? Oh, you got them already, Judge? Did you recognize the photos that I passed up?
I recognize the photos.
How do you recognize them?
I took them.
Okay. Are they a fair and accurate depiction of the property address with PFAL in the area on February 12, 2019?
That's correct, yes.
At this time, the city would like to introduce those photographs into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objections?
No, sir.
So entered. I don't know about anybody else, but I did not realize when they were saying peafowl that they were talking about peacocks. I was
They're
like,
considered
okay,
PFAL.
okay.
Now, Officer Fuentes, did you come on the property on February 19th, 2019?
That's correct.
And how did you get called out?
I was accompanied by FWC.
How were you made aware to even go there? Were there any complaints? Were there?
There were several complaints. There were a lot of complaints that were coming in and saying that the peafowl, the peacocks were outside the property and this and that.
Okay, so what do you do next? Do you go there with
Who called?
anyone?
Who called?
Complaints, there were complaints, Judge.
From neighbors? Saying that
From
the,
neighbors, Mr. Fuentes?
Yes,
saying that the birds were outside of this particular of the property owner's property?
that's correct.
If I may?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
So who, if anybody, do you go to the property with?
Okay, once I initially went out there and saw that the birds were in the front yard, which these pictures depict, I called FWC. I even called Dade County. And
What's the concern? What's the concern you have at that time? You go to the property, you see the peafowl on the property. What's the concern?
well, it seems like the birds were going in and out of the yard. So my concern was that he was harboring peafowl in the yard.
Okay.
So who do you go there with from FWC?
So FWC came out, Mr. Lander came out, and I explained the situation. He said, okay, let's go see, and he had happened to call the resident, and we got permission to go on the property.
That's not correct.
Now, Judge, there
it.
is a
Write it down.
there is an affidavit of Mr. Landa. He couldn't be here. He had some type of special duty, but I do have an affidavit that's signed and dated by him from April 9th, 2019. If I can pass it up.
Ms. Barcelo, were you home at the time that they contacted you
No,
through,
sir.
through your ring?
I was seeing patients. The
Okay.
way they contacted me, the ring rings directly to the
I,
phone.
I have it too. Yeah, I have it. Show the property owner the affidavit.
Thank you.
Any objections?
Yes. Return to you? Okay. The final sentence there is not truthful, but I don't have an issue with it. I did not give permission to enter the property. The statement made by Officer Landau at the time was, I have sufficient evidence and suspicion that something is going on in the property, and I will enter the property. He then asked if he could enter the house. And in the house is my mother-in-law, who has Alzheimer's, who's there with the lady who takes care of her. And I said, the ladies will not let you come in the house. There's no reason to go in the house. If you have legal right to come on the property due to your suspicion, no one's going to stop you.
Okay, thank you.
That's a clarification.
Thank you.
Proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
You're admitting that, or you're,
Yes, we are admitting the affidavit.
all right, granted. I don't need it. I read it. No.
Okay.
More pics?
I'm sorry.
Take a look at these. I'm showing the property owner more photographs.
Yeah.
Mr. Fuentes, do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize them?
I took these pictures.
And on what day did you take those photographs?
The 19th, February 19th.
Are they a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw at the property that day?
Yes, that's correct.
We'd like to introduce those photographs into evidence, Judge.
Any objections?
No, those are pictures of my side yard and my neighbor's yard.
All right, so granted.
Now, Judge, would you like me to give you a moment or continue questioning?
Go ahead.
Now, Mr. Fuentes, what were the if you can depict for the magistrate, what did this area look like on the property in terms of the PFAL and how they were housed?
The conditions were very poor. There was feces, droppings, muddy pool water, muddy bowls. The PFAL were not able to, it was too small of a cage for the PFAL to even turn around. So for 10 of them to be in there was just inhumane.
Now, would you say that it was not adequate shelter from the elements?
It wasn't adequate shelter.
Now, in one of those photographs, there's a depiction of like a mini pool or a bucket of dirty brown water.
Yes.
Did you see that day?
Yes, I took a photo.
Now, would you say that is sufficient and that was clean and sanitary?
No, it wasn't clean or sanitary.
Okay. Now, did you see any food in the area for the PFAL?
No, there was no food. I mean, there was a mesh screen, and under the mesh screen, I guess it fell through, and there was some like chicken feed or something like that of that nature, but wasn't no food.
Chicken feed.
Yeah.
Now, would
Was
you
it
say,
sufficient for their consumption? For the number of birds that were in that enclosure, was it
No.
significant?
Was not enough.
now, would you say that there was proper hygiene of this area where the peafowl were maintained by this property owner?
Wasn't proper hygiene. Like I said, in the cage it was all feces and droppings, and then on the outside on the floor where we were walking there was all feces and droppings, because there was 10 in the cage, and then there was also 10 outside the cage. So they were, you know, the 10 that were in the cage were bringing attention to the ones on the outside, so they were making a mess as well on the outside.
Now, did there appear to be, if you recall, some type of lock on these cages?
Yeah, he had 2 doors, and they had like a hole in it with a piece of wire going through it.
Now, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about when you met with the,
Could we kind of let me answer some of this? Because remember, I'm not an attorney,
You're-
and you have a lot of information you're
correct,
throwing out.
the way this, I'm gonna
That's how
speak-
we do it. That's
And
how,
then you go.
That's how us
Okay.
attorneys do it. We just write it. We just write the stuff down as
Okay,
they
sir.
testify.
Thank you.
Now, when you went with the FWC officer on the property, you accessed the property with him,
That's correct.
and this is when you were able to see these conditions of the PFAL.
Yes.
Did at any point you ever get to speak to the homeowner?
I spoke to him through the ring bell the next day when I was there with animal rangers, and he was collecting the birds.
Now, can you, for the record and for the court, just explain what is the ring bell?
The ring bell, I guess you
Let the
ring.
record reflect that the court is sufficiently aware of the ring system.
Okay, I'll keep going. Can you continue? You access the property the next day?
Right, I accessed the property the next day. The animal ranger had also gotten permission to go on the property and to get the birds that were in the cage. I spoke with the gentleman, the resident, and I told him that we were coming to pick up the birds. Please do not release them. The next day when we went, there was 2 to 4, I think it was 4 that were released. Not all 10 of them were in the cage at that time, so.
But there were still some peafowl in the cage.
Yes, yes, there were like 6 peafowl in the cage, and then we were trying to catch the ones on the outside as well.
Now, who contacted the animal ranger?
I did,
Okay. Now, were the police ever called in the case?
yes,
Was there an incident report made
Yes, there
regarding
was.
the matter?
yes.
I'm sorry.
Now, Mr. Fuentes, I'm showing you 2 things. The first one,
I'm sorry.
I'm showing you 2 things. The first one is the incident report from the North Miami Police Department.
That's correct,
Is that from the date in question regarding the peafowls in this case?
yes,
Okay. And the second thing is you stated under oath that the animal rangers were called in order to gather the peafowl and get them off the property, correct?
is that the quote?
And that along with a receipt of the services
Right,
rendered and paid for?
yes.
At this time, the city would like to introduce the incident report and the certification from the animal ranger that they were on property and that they had to recover these peafowl.
Any objection?
With entering that? No, sir.
So the process of removal of the peafowl on this particular property took from May 19th to March 27th? Or on those are 2 separate occasions?
The 10 peafowl that were in the cage were attracting the other peafowls in the area because they squawk and they call each other. So that's why people were calling in and complaining that they saw a peafowl on Maple Road right there in the front of his house because they were squawking and calling each other. So it took him, we went out several times and with nets, he tried to capture them and he did capture them. I've been going by ever since the incident and there hasn't been any more peafowls within the area.
So are these two separate occasions, or is this a range?
We were out on the 20th, the 21st, it said?
It says February 19th and March 27th.
Through March 27th,
So is
Right,
it
so
through or is it
It was
and?
through, yeah,
Through.
because we went there the next day and then, yeah, it was through.
because the date of incident was February
Right.
19th.
So admitted?
That range has nothing to do with this allegation, because number one, they're not my peafowl. And they're
Judge, I
running.
just have one more question before he can go on and defend his case, and I'll be done. Mr. Fuentes, just to go back, the complaints that you got were regarding the peafowl regarding this property. Now, were there other complaints regarding any other neighbors with the peafowl in their property?
At this
G-
particular time,
Before you answer, the citation was issued when?
The citations were issued
19th?
The 19th.
on February 19th, Judge.
Okay. And the citation that was issued was a violation of which?
So they're all different. If we're starting with 81,
Just tell me which codes are we dealing with?
sure, we're referencing code 4-10 in one case,
Which is
cruelty, neglect, or abandonment
okay.
of animals. 4-10, 4-10,
See,
4-10.
10,
And-
4-10,
and-
and then one was 4-11, foul poultry.
Pretty much all of them 4-10, and I'll decipher for Your Honor which one is 4-11 in 1 second.
what's 4-10?
4-10
cruelty.
is
It's the animal cruelty, right?
yes,
Okay.
correct. And then 4-11 is case 2019000005, which is
The
the keeping of
keeping-
animal and fowl.
Okay.
Because he had another kind of a bird. He had I forgot what you call that, fowl.
But it wasn't a peafowl.
It wasn't a peafowl. It was a different kind of bird. It was like a chicken, but
Yeah, because I saw some in there. That's like these look like the male fowl or the female fowl.
oh, guinea fowl.
Ah, guinea fowl. Okay. I don't know what that is.
Now, did you get any around this time? Did you get any complaints regarding any peafowl in any other neighbor's backyard?
Well, like I was saying, at this particular time, we couldn't understand why the peacocks and the peafowl were in the area, and
So they're not normally in the area?
like I said, I've been monitoring it every day now since this happened, and I haven't seen any peafowl in the area.
So no reoccurrence of
No.
a wandering peafowl.
No.
After they got removed from the property?
Yeah.
Now, before the actual incident, do you recall any calls to this area?
Yeah, there were calls all the time.
Okay. Did you ever? I know you stated under oath that you've been working as an animal control officer for 7 years. Did you have any prior experience or with this property of 12885 Maple Road regarding any other birds?
Yes, a few years back, we had an issue with this property with
Is
harbor.
this with the same property owner?
Yes, with harboring chickens and roosters. And I explained that he couldn't harbor chickens or roosters, any farm animals within the property. He explained to me that he was a doctor and that he was doing some kind of research of the West Nile virus and stuff like that.
Encephalitis?
Yes, and we went back and forth. He had a warning. I believe I ticketed him, but after a while, he got rid of the birds after he was educated in.
The encephalitis.
Yeah.
So this is not the first time that
No.
animals, birds have been housed at this
Right.
property? Okay,
And
no
like-
further,
like
no
he-
further
Like
questions.
he said, there's birds, he has all kinds of bird cages in his backyard with little
Okay.
birds, finches and stuff like that.
No further questions for this witness.
Is it my turn, Your Honor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's start from the back to the front since my memory. Number one, I think it's very unfair what he just presented because at that time, there were no roosters, there were hens. They had been left by the state of Florida. He was provided with the letter from the state of Florida and they were removed because the state of Florida canceled the funding for the encephalitis program. And he is fully aware of that because he was involved. And if you're gonna accuse me of something that was provided to the city at that time, is the due diligence of at least bringing the forms that were presented to the state, and that's why there was no fine. Because it was proven, and it was in the interest of the city of North Miami that the encephalitis program was being conducted by the state of Florida. They built that pen, and they left it there, and then they canceled the program. So I'm not denying that there were hens there at that time, but the circumstance that it has been presented in is misleading and untruthful.
Do you have paperwork regarding that matter?
I had
You,
presented it
you
to
know,
the state at that
you know,
time.
I let that portion go just as a matter of
Okay.
courtesy. It has no real relevance to
This case,
this case.
correct.
Now,
Alright.
furthermore, moving forward, statements that the officer made that he didn't contact me to the next day, if you follow his trend and what he stated on your tape, he's saying that he didn't talk to me till the next day, that he spoke to me on the ring. He did not speak to me on the ring on the 19th. He actually was given by Officer Landa my cell phone that I had given Officer Landa, and he spoke to me on my cell phone. Yet he stated here that he had not spoken to me on the 19th.
Let me ask you a question. Doctors are pretty smart guys and women. What does any of that have to do with regards to
I think,
what I should consider?
okay,
as
I
to-
agree with you, and I'm just saying, I also agree with you. What does any of that have to do with what's there? So if we want to go to the meat and potatoes of it,
Please,
the,
I'm kind of hungry.
me too, and I have patience to see. The city clearly says and defines cruelty as a continued thing that is not abated in the definition of cruelty. There
Does it-
was no
Does that
continu-
definition give a period of time, or am I supposed to use my own judgment?
It says, my understanding and legal vermin is from the minute you're made aware, you should abate it. I did. I told him he could take them. So there was no challenge there. If you relook at the pictures that were presented to you with the pens, there's actually food in there. Because I just, I saw the picture. There's actually food there in the actual pictures you were given.
Yeah, that's why I questioned him with regards to sufficiency.
And it's sufficient if they're not eating and hungry. Because if an animal leaves food there, it indicates it's sufficient. I own over 100-acre agricultural business. I know the laws. Now, furthermore, in presenting what's here, in terms of the density statement, which, by the way, the city code and the state of Florida, because I reviewed both, do not state a density for birds. May I give you this, attorney?
Sure.
This is, first two pictures are stating that the standard of care in the county shows an active open bird business with birds housed in a similar way and density, and then it shows a national example of birds in high-density cages. The law does not stipulate the density for any species, and much less does the city code to allege that it's cruelty.
Judge, I can pass this up, but I'm going to object to these photos right now. They're,
How about are you objecting to his contention?
I'm
I'm objecting to the photographs and what he's saying.
Well, you can
And I
read
can
it
tell
on the
you why.
internet.
Please.
Okay, well, I'm looking at page 3 to be exact of,
And I
this
don't
com-
really care about the pictures either. I just care about the argument as to
Sure.
density.
So the search term here, this is from roysfarm.com. The search term was commercial poultry farming. That is not what we're here for. It's totally out of scope. This is for actual farms who are able to house, these are chickens.
Agree.
This has nothing to do with a residential property in the city of North Miami housing peafowls.
Agree.
So I
But
think it's irrelevant for
It
this.
does have to do
Agree.
with the contention of cruelty and densities, because the city of North Miami in its code has no documentation or guidance or intent of what, and all that I'm doing by presenting.
That's why they presented expert testimony
Well-
from the witness as to what he believed the density, whether the density was
Okay.
sufficient or not.
Further, I would say that the city code, if you look at 410, section 4,
Mhm.
when you're gonna define the hygiene issue, it says confine any animal to its own excreta when the amount of excreta that can be reasonably produced by the species in a 12-hour period has exceeded. So you would have to inspect and prove that it was exceeded. Now, these cages were built by the state of Florida with wire meshing on the bottom and drain right through. So there is no proof or sufficient, and this is the city code. And I have 2 copies. If you need this in evidence, I can give it to you, but it is the city code that you all have. So if you would like to read this.
I have it,
No, I mean, listen, it's
and I'm ready for argument if
this
Your Honor wants it.
this is a multi-element issue. So
The other contention that was made during all this is that I'm harboring these animals. In his statement, he's
Kinda
showing
s-
a pool.
kind
that
of
was-
seems that way.
There was a gardening pool. It was not in the area of the birds being housed, so you can't say that that attests to, that's not inside the cage or the pen. That was something that we had been planting in. And so, well, you may see it as dirty, but if you're alleging that that shows hygiene or cruelty to the animals, it should be in the enclosure that the animals are in. The animals are excluded from that.
Do I
They're
need
not
to
there.
pass this up?
So I think it's also unfair.
There were also animals loose on the property.
They're not mine. They're feral, and they are going throughout the
There's a
city.
bowl inside the cage.
The officer is also being misleading and saying that nothing's been going on. The officer himself, through my neighbors telling me, and you can attest to it because I know it's going to be traceable, had placed cages throughout Keystone, even 2 to 3 blocks down, because most of these peacock are thought to have started coming our way when they started the major construction areas and the big mansions in the back and the big trees were starting to move. We have, I think, 4 or 5 houses, and that's when this migration started. So in alleging that I'm,
Let me ask you a question.
yes, sir,
This seems kind of simple to me. Maybe I'm just a simple-minded kind of guy.
and so am I. I'm concrete.
Birds invade my property that I don't want there. Me, I pick up the phone, I call animal control, get these pests off my property. I'm not housing them, I'm not giving them nothing to eat, I'm not giving them nothing to drink, I just want them removed. That's
Well,
just so you have a glimpse into how I
Right, the
think about
difference
some
between
stuff.
you and I is I don't feel uncomfortable with them. I did feed them. I did water them. You have a picture with food there. And I don't feel uncomfortable with them because I do have birds in my farm in North Carolina. So I'm not uncomfortable. I wasn't uncomfortable picking them up and moving them out of the house, just like I'm not uncomfortable picking up a lizard or a snake.
So let me give you a legal concept that kind of encapsulates this scenario, right?
Yes, sir.
If a guy swims out into the middle of the ocean and starts to drown, and I happen to walk by and see him drowning, he yells out to me, "Help! Help! Help!" And I'm like, "Ch-ch-ch." Not helping though, "Ch-ch." And I keep walking. I can't be arrested, and he dies. I can't be arrested because I didn't stop and render aid.
Correct.
Now, if I was the cause of him swimming out in the middle of the ocean, if I was the cause of it, then now I have an obligation to render aid.
Correct.
And as a doctor, you understand that scenario, right?
And as a doctor,
It
even
makes
if I
sense.
wasn't the cause, I would still have to render aid.
The birds come on your property, right?
Yes, sir.
Birds come on my property, I call animal control because when they come on my property, I have no legal obligation to them when they come on my property. So I call animal control
Yes,
to
sir.
get them off my property because I don't want to create any legal obligation to care for them. But then if I put them inside an enclosure and I begin to water them and feed them, now I've created an obligation that exists now where it may not have existed prior to that.
Correct.
Okay? So you understand?
But I believe I met that obligation.
So when you say they're not yours,
No, I meant that the
I'm
ones
gonna
that
have
he
to
alleged are
dis-
running around loose. Well, the ones that are in the cage are technically not mine either. and they had only been in there for a couple days, and they were watered and fed, but the alleging that all the other birds are mine and my
March 19 through,
but
I
that's
mean,
not
February
that's not correct.
through.
That statement is
March.
the time that it took him to capture whatever birds were flowing around in Keystone, and there still are birds, because there was one on the street this morning,
And Judge, we only cited him for the 10 birds in question that were in these poor conditions in his cages.
which has nothing to do with March, and it was
Okay.
abated immediately.
Okay, but they were in your cages
And
on
they
your
were fed,
property.
and you yourself saw a picture with corn there,
All right.
and they had been watered. And I have Officer Landau
Anything?
on the Ring video saying that they were watered.
Oh, Judge, I mean, I have an email from Officer Landa, who's the FWC Division of Law Enforcement statewide investigation. I can pass it up. He basically says, this is to Mr. Fuentes. It says, it is evident that they're being kept in very poor, unsanitary conditions. The enclosure was covered with fecal matter. Droppings in the water bowl is contaminated with droppings and neglected for some time.
That still doesn't comply
Also,
with
the
city code.
enclosure appeared to be too small to house
think that's
10
my
birds,
decision.
limiting the movements throughout the enclosure. That's what Officer Landa has to say.
But in all honesty, sir, if you have any animal, whether you have a parakeet or a lovebird, they will bathe in their water. They will dirty the water, and you do have to change it several times a day. And I did do that. And the other part to this is, if you're saying that I did cruelty, which this is what this is about, and yet you remove birds that were not covered in feces, because I have them on the video when you remove them. You and the young man are playing in my backyard holding the birds up and posing them. So I actually have the bird on the video. I also have on the video the discussion of Dr. Michael Fuentes discussing if these birds are edible.
I don't know what video we're talking
Well,
about.
I can
I
play
don't
it
know
for
what
you.
I don't know why it's relevant. So,
Well,
I
it's
don't
relevant
either.
because
It's
I'm
after
being
the fact.
accused of things, but then my yard, it's talking about eating things and whatnot. That's a lot more concerning than, trying to allege something that's not really true. Because in your own picture, you have
eating,
food.
eating birds is more concerning than
Eating the peafowl, is that cruel? I mean, they're
eating
not.
the chicken. Is that cruel?
Well, so their water got dirty, you clean it. I did. So to say you did one visit and they were dirty, also standard of care for most of animal cruelty cases that I reviewed for Dade County, which has been an issue, also people come back and re-inspect just like you do with everything else if you want to keep them. And they prove you either didn't take care of them and you abated the issue and now you have fresh water, food, and whatnot, which he did prove the next morning, less than 12 hours.
But you didn't want to keep them, so why is that an issue for you?
Either way, what I'm saying is I complied with, one, the request to take them into custody and safety immediately.
Okay.
And
Listen,
I did
listen,
feed
enough,
them.
enough.
Judge, do you
I
need
got
to
it.
hear-
Enough. No, I don't.
And I also
don't.
think these are exuberant fines for something.
I don't even know what the fine is, but I uphold the citation.
Do you understand, and with all due respect, Your Honor, these are $6,000 worth of fines for a bird that was in a pen for a day and a half with food that you saw there? Is that fair? Is that just, even with what the city says here?
You're arguing the fine.
I'm arguing both, that it doesn't define what it says here in 410, because they're not hurt. There's no veterinary report that says they were hurt, because they weren't. There's no statement, even from him, that they were covered in feces, which is what you say right here. They have food, they were able to stand and move, which is also there.
He also testified that they didn't have sufficient food, they didn't have sufficient water supply, that there were too many inside the pen.
That's not in the code.
It is actually.
Where is it?
It's subsection 4-10, subsection 2, 3, and 7 to be exact if you
Where
want.
does it say, well, wait, there's food in the pen, and you see it in the picture. The
I
density
find that
is
there was not
there.
sufficient food in the pen, which is why I actually questioned myself.
So
It was
sufficient food.
contaminated.
How do you know, in
And the
all
water was contaminated.
sufficient food? They have, if they're not eating and they're sitting down in the picture, they're not hungry. They have food.
Maybe they don't like poop and corn. I don't know.
I'm only asking you to be a reasonable person? Because
I thought I was
it's not
being.
even defined, sir. Is you're attaching a cruelty issue where there really isn't one because the animal's not hurt.
I think you're attaching I think you're attaching too much to the term cruelty.
Well, I think it carries a very heavy statement, and it sets a precedence of something that's not real here.
Again, having heard the testimony, evidence presented, I uphold the citation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do intend to appeal this, so if somebody can give me some assistance, because I don't think it's fair.
You have to obtain a verbatim, you have to obtain a record, and then you have to file the appropriate suit. So just call an attorney.
Okay.
That process I don't suggest you do by yourself.
Do I need to sign something here, or? Okay. Will I get any summary of what's here?
You'll get the copy of the order,
Okay.
and then you have to do with that order what you're supposed to.
And I get that when?
Within a couple of, within a week.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm the Spanish interpreter that was hired here. I have a prior commitment. There's an interpreter coming to replace me who said that he would be here between 12:20 and 12:25.
Mhm.
If any cases come up with Spanish, can you wait until 12:20, 12:25? If another replacement interpreter will be here
You said you have another engagement at what time?
at 1 o'clock
At 1 o'clock?
in Coral Gables.
In Coral Gables.
The
All right.
agency that hired me was informed previously of my other prior engagement.
Okay.
And they just informed me that the replacement will be here
Te-
between 12:20 and 12:25.
Yeah. Tell them that in the future, our calendars run a little bit longer than they used to. All right.
First time I'm here.
Thank you, though. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
service.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next item on the agenda is item 54, Gustavo Lorenzo. Shanna Sanders is the officer's case number CESEA 2018-00001, item 54.
No? Okay. I asked them if they needed an interpreter.
Go ahead and make your appearance for the record. Su nombre?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Gustavo Lorenzo, 2145 Arch Creek Drive, North Miami, Florida, 33181.
All right. Last time you were here, I adjudicated this matter. I gave you till April 10th, and you're back, so I'm assuming it didn't get done. Tell me
Okay,
what's going on.
unfortunately, my contractor was sitting here with me. He need to go for a phone call and be back, he promised, within 5 minutes. What I know, because I don't handle these things, he will be happy if I can do it myself. We applied for DERM in October 2018. We are still waiting for their results. I understand it's a meeting with them on April 25th. We have a permit application for the city of North Miami to start working. If you are willing to sign it, we will start working tomorrow. But I understand we need the authorization from them. And it's nothing that we can do if we cannot have that authorization.
Permitting won't issue the permit without approval from Durham.
Shanna Sanders, City of North Miami Code Compliance Officer. I'll be more comfortable with our building official coming up, possibly giving that testimony. I don't know. I cite if they don't have a permit, but when it comes to the issuing of permits, I don't want to give any testimony, and I'm not comfortable with giving testimony in regards to that.
All right, have somebody come.
We have the permit ready,
Oh, I see
Notarized
he's
and
left
everything.
already.
the application.
He left
but
already? Tell him he's not allowed to get lunch yet. See if someone can catch him. Have him come back. Let's pass the case until he comes back. Just have a seat, please, and we'll have the building official come back.
Next case, item 47, DRJ Holding. Gary Beswick is the officer. The case number is MHVIO 2018-00923, item 47.
My name is Jerry My name is Jerry Mann. I'm a managing member of DRJ Holdings. Address is 835 Lennox Avenue, Miami Beach.
All right. Been made aware of the violation, correct?
Yes,
Any objections to the violation?
I'd like to hear the city side of it. I don't quite understand. A little confused on the violation.
It says obtain all required permits for interior renovations, windows, doors, and doors that were installed without a permit.
Yes, it's in process.
Okay, so there's no objection then to the
Yes.
violation.
I'll
How much
accept
time
the
do you need?
violation.
How much time do you need?
I'm going to give you a number only because the business environment is so difficult to get small jobs done. Their contractors and architects are so busy. They're busier than they have been in 10 years. And a small job is just, I've been through 2 architects and 2 contractors that just abandon the jobs. Just literally abandon the job. I can't believe it. I'm out the money and I got to find someone else. It's not an excuse. It's a fact, because there have been Exo Construction just took me to the cleaners, and I had to get another one. Archon Architects did the same thing, just abandoned the job. I had to restart it, and no one likes to get involved in this stuff, small stuff. So I need time.
60 days, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
60 days, he suggested I give you 60 days.
If 90 would be better, only because of what I just said, sir.
But we're gonna start with 60. So I find that a violation
Thank
does
you.
exist as cited. Issue an abatement date of June 12th. If not abated by June 12th, then it's $250 per day until
Okay.
abated.
Could I get an understanding when you say abated would be a
To
file,
correct the violation.
which would be a file permit,
Correct.
nothing more?
No,
construct-
a issued permit.
Issued permit by the city of North Miami.
Correct.
Construction does not have to be completed by then, just a permit issued.
Correct. It's because it's a permit issue.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is item 51, Gertha Alcina. Karen Jean Lewis is the officer. The case number CEEXP 2019-00027, item 51.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You can pull the mic down. There you go.
I just said good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead and make your appearance for the record. Go ahead and make your appearance. State your name and your address.
My name is Gertha Alcina. The address is 780 Northwest 133rd Street, North Miami, Florida, 33168.
All right, you received a citation for failure to pressure clean and paint your property. Are you objecting to that violation?
No.
All right, how much time do you need?
Can you give me until the last Saturday of June, please?
The last Saturday of June to pressure clean?
And
And
paint
paint.
it together, because I have to paint it.
I can give you till June 12th.
You cannot give me the last week, last Saturday?
It's not how
money.
It's not how our calendar kind of works. So I'm gonna give you to. I'm finding a violation does exist as cited. I'm gonna give you till June 12th to do it. If you haven't done it by June 12th, then you'll come back before me and we'll see what's going on.
Okay,
All right.
the gentle, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's
next-
it, I'm good to go?
Yes.
The next item is item 66, Jean Verrier. Jose Perez is the officer. The case number is CEGMP 2018-00425, item 66. Okay, I got you.
Jean Emery? Jean Emery? No?
Yes? Yeah? Translator? Yeah.
Swear him in. Yeah, swear him in.
doit tout? Est-ce qu'au solemnement juré que témoignage? Est-ce qu'au solemnement juré que témoignage va présenter la casa, c'est la vérité, toute la vérité, selon la vérité? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Villiers, you were cited for needing to paint the property.
Yes.
Do you object to this violation?
Monsieur, te cité où, vous voir infraction parce que ou peinture propriétaire, est-ce que objecté contre charge ça?
Oui or no?
I cannot paint it yet because of the hurricane. Not yet, not yet.
Which hurricane?
The hurricane in Cuba that just passed.
You projecting that we're gonna get hit by it?
Est-ce qu'on pense que on sait qu'on a frappé nous?
If I may add some context to this, we previously heard this.
The adjuster.
Number 66?
The adjuster's
sorry?
responsible for everything.
You said
along
we
with the
previously
insurance.
we
We
previously
previously
heard?
heard it, and we tabled it until April 17th today because they needed more time from the insurance company. So we previously heard this, I believe it was, 1 second,
Have an insurance claim for painting the property?
because they have damage to the roof, and that was their
Ah.
justification. They were waiting to
You
hear back.
want to do everything at one time.
Exactly. On March 20th, it was heard last, and we gave them until April 17th. I'm sorry? The roof, and nothing has been done on the property, so I'm not sure what his position is right now with the insurance company.
They're not gonna do nothing because the hurricane is coming.
It is not the insurance. The adjuster who has contact. There's a claim going on, but the last inspection or final inspection has not yet been done. We're just waiting on the insurance.
Okay. Every property owner. Oh,
They
he's
gave me
talking.
this paper to turn over to the judge.
Oh, okay. Well, turn it over.
Thank you. Okay, this is dated from October 9th, and it's just saying that there's a claim. I'll pass it forth.
Yeah. To Fraser property and adjusting, we can't do that.
They cannot do it?
No, we can't. We can't just stop our process to wait for their process. Especially in this particular instance, in which the city is simply asking that the building be painted. So you're going to have to paint the building regardless of whatever claims you have with your insurance carrier. Oh, now she got a
Yes,
heart.
but the
Now
adjuster has
she-
told
now
me
she got
whatever I
heart.
do to the property, the insurance will now be responsible.
Now you got a heart. Let me see.
I have to wait for them.
Your Honor, the city has no objections with tabling it to give them more time.
Since he was advised otherwise.
In good faith that the issue will be repaired, that is.
Okay. I'm gonna give you more time, but when you come back, those shutters should have been pressure cleaned.
Yes, I can do that.
All right. Till next calendar. That's May 15th. And tell the adjuster we need an updated letter.
I was not told when I have to come back.
May 15th. And tell the adjuster we need an updated letter about the progress of the claim.
Le 15 mai. Et puis dis à juste là que j'ai besoin de l'autre lettre qui n'a rien en progrès réclamation. Illustré progrès réclamation.
Thank you.
We're calling back item number 54, Gustavo Lorenzo, Shanna Sanders as the officer, case number CESEA 2018-00001, item 54.
We're in the afternoon now, though.
Shanna Sanders, City of North Miami Code Compliance Officer. We now have the building official present. What was the question again that you were asking?
So this is a damaged seawall, and the contractor has says that they've been waiting on a DERM approval since October, and they can't go forward with the permitting process because they need an approval from DERM. So does the permitting process require DERM approval?
The building official was first, stating, he's asking when was the permit submitted. I looked in the computer and I showed that the permit was actually submitted on April 4th. I don't know what's been pending since October. The violation was opened in October, but the permit application was just submitted on the 4th of April.
Okay. Oh, so
The
we
process
thought the
is,
permit hadn't been applied for yet.
well, the process is that they come in, we stamp the plans, they go to Durham for their
That's what I
approval,
thought.
and then it comes back to us. But until downtown is approved, I cannot issue any type of permit, even grant them an early start. And State Pizzola, building official for the city of North Miami.
And so that's where we're at, Mr. Contractor?
Yeah, yes, sir. This is the way that works. Until that, let me, wait, hold a second.
This was opened in October, I adjudicated in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm showing here, it was actually first initially opened August 9th, 2018, but it came before you, and you adjudicated it, and you gave them time. They said that they had to go between all the DERM paperwork and things of that nature.
I adjudicated when?
Let's look here. Shows here opened August 9th, spoke to property owner, you adjudicated it on January 23rd, 2019. States that the magistrate found them guilty with a fine of $100 if compliance was not met.
So why?
I'm sorry, 250. I'm sorry.
What was delayed from January till April?
There has been a few, there has been a few revision that the DERM has been done to the plans, and has been a few meetings, and the next meeting is gonna be April 25th.
But the city is saying that they only show you submitting for the application this month. Am I wrong?
That's correct, April 4th to be exact.
So what delayed you from January to April in submitting to the city?
Sir, the application was submitted. If you give me a second, I can pull it out right now. Give me a second.
I mean,
I'm gonna tell you exactly when the application was
Okay.
submitted.
they telling me when they got it. Mr. Is Mr. Gustavo? When did you obtain the contractor? In January, I told you it was necessary. In January, I told you it would be necessary to abate this violation by April 10th. When did you obtain the
I contract
contractor?
Mr.
On October.
in sometime in October.
So,
He got the down payment in October. I
so
signed
in January, when I heard the case, you had already had the contractor.
and he was here also.
And the application was already submitted to the city to be done.
You couldn't submit it to Durham without first having submitted it to the city.
No. We have to go to there.
I'm trying to leave this.
What went to Durham?
Excuse me?
What went to Durham? The plans?
You might have to wait till this comes.
What did you send to Durham?
Okay, to there, we submitted the application.
Which application?
It's an application, like every
From the city? The city's
No,
application?
no, 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 no.
City?
It's a, they have their own application, where you put some information, and then you submit the plan. I have copy of a small copy of the plans, because we don't print out.
Do you
the-
have a small copy of when you sent
of-
it to
of the
Durham?
plans that was submitted, which are here. These two.
You have a small copy of when you sent it to Durham?
No, 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 I sent big ones.
I'm saying, do you have anything that shows me when you sent it to Durham?
As soon as this comes up, I will.
I can pull it out here. I have no internet here. Sorry, I don't have a copy of the application. Let me see. No, I don't have a.
So your
internet.
testimony is that your delay was that you submitted to Durham
No, no, no.
prior to submitting to the city?
Okay. In the way that thing works, you submit the plans to them with the application. Then start the review, the process review that sometimes takes years. Sometimes. I don't think it's gonna be this case. During this time, he reviewed the plan and I start recommending change and stuff and see, and then you change plan, and sometimes you have to withdraw the plan 3, 4, 5 times.
So you're saying from your understanding, the process is you go to Durham first. When you get a Durham approval, then you apply it to the city for a permit.
Exactly. That's the way that works.
Okay, so you currently have a Durham approval.
Not yet.
Then what did you apply, what did you give us on 4/4? Because we're showing an application date of 4/4. If you haven't been approved yet, what'd you give us?
Okay, wait. That's the guy that you.
Okay.
Let me explain to you. Because the delay and all the stuff looks like he tried to contract another contractor, and that contractor apply for a permit. Apply for a permit application, which is not mine. But anyway, that contractor can be receive a permit without go to them first.
Right, okay.
Let me show you something. It's nothing related to North Miami. I bring this because it's another case. In this case, it's City of Coral Gables. Until you have this is pre-approval seal. Any city
Okay.
go to draft process.
So
to
how'd you
receive
end
the
up with
permit.
2 contractors?
Excuse me? Go ahead.
Perhaps you don't believe me, but this is a big problem for me. I contract Ernesto Satimbanco, and during the month of March, he didn't return any of my phone calls or texts or anything.
This guy.
Yeah.
This guy, I'm the owner, he's the contractor. Then on March 27, I hired another contractor.
But you didn't hear from this guy.
Yeah.
The next day, he showed up with the drawings for them and everything. Then I put the other one on hold, because if not, if we keep having this problem, this gentleman
He
will
must
be looking for me because I will kill him.
I mean, he really likes you. He let you come back.
But that's why it was another contractor
I don't know
involved.
I have an appointment on the 25th this month.
Okay.
Hopefully it's gonna be the last.
All right. Well, we'll see. One more month. We'll see.
Okay, so we'll see. Hopefully it's gonna be the last.
All right.
After that, then I came here with the application and the approval plan, and then we're gonna receive it.
May 15th.
If you give me the permit, we can start tomorrow, because the money's there, everything is there to start working, but you can do nothing.
All right. May 15th.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
No.
The next item is item 77, Leota Dolphin. Crystal Cordo is the officer. The case number CEBPR 2017-00154, item 77.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How you doing? I'm Frank Patrick Dolphin Sr.,
You are.
owner of the property. I obtained it in 2018.
2018.
Yes, sir.
Um,
My mother was the previous owner. She passed away in July 2017.
okay. Counsel, you gonna make an appearance?
No, actually, I'm not counsel, Your Honor.
Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm his construction manager.
Okay. So where are we at?
Okay, well, when I was here last time, you told me to find out what I was going to do, either demolish it or bring it up to code. I had somebody prior to him, that I started working with, a contractor, but somehow he disappeared, and so I got referred to by somebody else.
Seems like a common theme here.
Yeah, well, it does happen. This is the world that we live in, so I have somebody that knows, that's much more knowledgeable about everything and the procedure that needs to be taking place